Hello and welcome back to Lessons in Attachment. Today, guys, I want to talk to you about a conversation that comes up all the time for those of us that feel insecure. I want to talk to you about understanding jealousy, really through the lens of attachment work, healing your inner child and reparenting. The reason for that is because this week I'm talking a lot about inner child healing and reparenting yourself. So if you want to join in that conversation, make sure you are actively following me over on Instagram, carly.ann_, because I'm going to be sharing lots around this topic. And I would love, firstly, I just would love to know that you're listening. I'd love to get to know you and understand what it is that brings you here. But also, I know that the inner child healing is so important. And I feel like it's something that's really important as well for those of us that have suffered or are suffering with intense jealousy. You will know that sharp pang of jealousy. And if you have ever wondered why you feel so anxious when someone seems to be too close to your partner, or if there's silence from the person that you like and you automatically assume there must be someone else, we'll dive into all of that today, plus so much more. I want you to remember as we talk about this that, that good old saying that healing is not linear. This is a process. You don't need to have all of the answers right now. Okay, this conversation that you and I are having today, this is about you offering yourself self-compassion. This is about having self-awareness. This is your chance to really reparent yourself so that that younger part that is feeling that jealousy, that is expressing certain emotions through jealousy, that part feels safe and loved. So let's just hold that close to us because we can be so judgmental, like to ourselves when it comes to jealousy. We have a lot of judgment around this emotion. Now, don't forget that if you want to take this episode to the next level, you can download the free PDF to go with this episode. It's going to be full of like the key points and some extras as well. I've included some tips and prompts to help you specifically with jealousy. So if you go to the description, you can get access to that. You'll need to input your email and password. Keep that safe because you can log in and each week you will see new PDFs to go with the episodes. Yeah, it's just so that you can get even more from this podcast for it to help you, because I know the journey from anxious to insecure. So that's the Lessons in Attachment newsletter. So go and join that. Okay, as I always like to do on my courses and with my clients, let's just take a moment, deep breath, and we're going to transition into this episode. So let's think about some of the different ways that jealousy shows up in relationships. Yeah, so why don't you take a moment first to consider how jealousy shows up for you across different relationships. Where is it not too bad? Where does it feel the hardest? Where is it causing problems? If you're someone who tends to lean towards anxious attachment or disorganized attachment, if you're someone who tends to lean towards getting quite panicked and feeling the threat in your relationships, then the chances are you often need that kind of constant reassurance from your partner. You probably feel those waves of fear when you're uncertain about the relationship. And you may well notice that jealousy is one of the most difficult emotions that you experience. And it's one of these ones where it really takes over. You lose a sense of self. Maybe you freeze, maybe you feel numb, maybe you go into a state of panic. It's not just a small feeling. It's a kind of tidal wave of emotions and doubts and fears, and it can feel really overwhelming. And as I've said already, for me, I really truly believe that this is linked to the feelings of your inner child. When it's that intense, when it's that overwhelming, and often doesn't apply to the situation. Yeah, because it can be imagined, it can be imaginary. Not always, of course, but a lot of the time. The part of you that didn't get the care or attention you needed in your early years, that little version of yourself might still be, or is probably carrying some unhealed wounds, some pain, feeling anxious and wanting you to feel safe. It wants you to feel safe and it doesn't want you to be left, especially for someone else. Yeah, it wants you to be chosen over this person. And of course, when we feel insecure in our relationships, it can trigger those old fears from our childhood. Yeah. Where maybe love and care wasn't always predictable, wasn't always available. Maybe, other things or other people were chosen over you. We see this relationship with jealousy a lot if maybe your caregiver had another family or put work first or had substance misuse issues. That's my personal story. For anxious attachment types, jealousy is not just about losing someone. Yeah, it's more than that. Let's give ourselves the understanding here that it is more than that. It's more than that. You feel it. It's about that deep, painful belief that maybe I'm not good enough, that maybe they're going to choose someone else. Maybe I'm never going to be picked. Maybe they're cheating on me right now. It's this constant overthinking, and it's a real feeling of being inferior, a belief on some deep level that I'm inferior to this person or to someone else, to something else. And you will find yourself jumping automatically straight to the worst case scenario. And in the process, it kind of becomes that you become stuck in this cycle. And you guys know I'm all about breaking the cycles. The cycle of, getting that trigger, feeling the jealousy, feeling like you need to then cling on tighter. But also often then that creates conflict. In worst cases, it pushes people away, because it's such a difficult dynamic that comes up in relationships when jealousy is involved, because there's mistrust. We don't like to feel like we can't trust someone. Anxious attachers really struggle with trust. Insecure attachers really struggle with trust. And we don't like to feel like someone doesn't trust us. Yes, side note, it's going to be very hard if you're trying to deal with jealousy when you actually have something to be jealous about. So let's be clear with that. Like, don't fool yourself, don't trick yourself. If your boundaries are being crossed, if you are dating someone or with someone who is literally crossing boundaries, cheating on you, you're going to feel jealous. It's going to be tough to heal. That's just keeping a wound open and hurting yourself over and over again. But for those of you where I know that you are able to have healthier relationships, but this jealousy gets in the way, the jealousy of them with a colleague, jealousy with them, with their friends, with a family member, with their kids, whatever it might be. It might even be with them with work. But there is this third element. There's this something else that feels like a threat. Disorganized attachment style, complete conflict. You're craving connection, craving closeness, fear of rejection at the very same time. For someone that is leaning into more disorganized, so anxious and avoidant tendencies, again, that desire to cling, that urge to pull away, that kind of tug of war of withdrawing, leaning back in, being angry, being sad, confusing, unpredictable. Sometimes you may lash out in anger, retreat entirely, unsure of how to cope. What I wouldn't do here is get hooked on, so which attachment style am I? Just be more curious about what you experience in the moment when jealousy takes over. Yeah. It's rooted in the past. It is unresolved wounds of that inner child who wasn't sure where they stood with love, who felt rejected, torn between wanting to be loved but fearing that love would disappear. Your inner child likely still believes that love is so unreliable, that people leave, that you're going to get hurt. And now as an adult, you actually have the opportunity to help your inner child to feel safe. Yeah, you can show them that love doesn't need to be chaotic or uncertain. It can be steady, reliable, secure. This is the perfect time, because it's kind of just landing with me, to say, if you're a member of the Attachment Recovery Gym, please just type inner child into the hub, into the search bar, and see what comes up. We've got workshops, we've got support, we've got affirmations. Really spend this time nurturing your inner child. And if you're not a member of the Attachment Recovery Gym, this is absolutely your call to join us, to come and heal your inner child, come and do this work with us. Yeah. I guess what I really want to share with you here, if you're someone who struggles with jealousy, and I hope it's come across even a little bit that this is, for me, I used to say jealousy for sure is one of the hardest emotions that I deal with. I felt like I could not cope with it, completely would take over, and I would see all those old patterns come out. And trust me, I'm not, if that's not completely gone away, I can manage it much better. I can recognize it. I can be with my inner child in those moments when the jealousy hits. Yeah. You're not broken. We're not broken. We are not broken. These are understandable responses to childhood experiences marked by fear, inconsistency, neglect. And I guess my question is, and the point that I'm hoping that is coming across in this episode is, are you willing to reparent yourself? Are you willing to recognize what jealousy is? Like I said, with jealousy, there is this third element, and it's fear. It's that this third thing or person is a threat to this relationship, and it may be real or imagined. And, there is this other side. Sometimes we can get confused with envy. Envy is much more about looking. So let me say this again. Jealousy, you're looking at the threat, the danger, the fear. Envy, we're more likely to be looking at, I want that thing that that person has. Yeah. And there's so many pros in that, because we can be like, okay, so what is it that I want? What is it I value here? What do I need to move forward with what knowledge here of, does anyone know what I'm trying to say? When it's envy, that kind of comparing ourselves, we can stand straight, we can hold our head up high and say, there is something about this situation that I desire and I want for myself. And if I can identify that, I can move towards it. I can follow that inner fire. I can follow that calling. Yeah. So just to kind of reiterate that, because I think maybe I should have said that more towards the beginning, but if you're still listening, then I feel like that's a really important call to make. Healing jealousy is going to mean, and I kind of have alluded to this a bit in terms of like the self-compassion, but something that I would say is really key for us is we've got to let go of guilt. We have to let go of guilt. You like many of us with anxious attachment, disorganized attachment, insecure attachment, carry guilt about feeling jealous, despite the fact that there is a reason we're experiencing this and we're having this childlike big emotion and acting out. And I'm not excusing it. We have to work on it. We have to learn how to reparent and soothe ourselves. Absolutely. But in the meantime, we've got to have compassion for how we got here. And we feel guilty for feeling jealousy. We feel ashamed. And that's probably because we are brought up in a world that's like, oh my God, she's crazy, she's too much, she's jealous. It's seen as such a bad thing that we would never admit that we're jealous. But why not? And owning it and saying these things out loud, for me, is part of healing it. Yeah, I've got a problem with jealousy. Yeah, I'm working on that. Like, how incredible was that to be working on jealousy? But when that jealousy arises, that guilt for feeling too much, that guilt for not being strong enough to handle these emotions, to not care. But jealousy is not something to be ashamed of. It's a signal that your inner child needs attention, and it needs attention from you. Now, sometimes it might be that we need a bit of reassurance from our partner. And trust me, if we're with the right person, they're going to be more than willing. More than willing. My partner is completely non-judgmental if that jealousy arises. Of course, there's boundaries and there's a line if I was just completely acting out, but he's fully understanding, especially when I'm able to communicate that in a secure way. Jealousy is a call for love, for reassurance, for healing. We've got to look underneath it. We've got to do that inner child work. We've got to understand where this is coming from. And then we can do that surface work as well of, well, how do I manage it in the moment? And when that jealousy takes over, we need to be able to refocus our attention, refocus back on what's important, back on the love, back on what's real. That's healing. So instead of beating yourself up, try to really meet your jealousy with curiosity, with compassion. Ask in that moment, what does my inner child need right now? Ask your inner child, what do you need? It makes sense that you're experiencing jealousy. What do you need? How can I reparent my inner child in this moment? Do I need to just hold their hand? Do I need to give some loving affirmations? Do I need to give them some reassurance that they're good enough, that they're going to be okay no matter what? Now, I know that some of you will be curious about avoidant attachment style as well. Okay, so I'm just going to touch on that. If someone leans towards avoidant tendencies, maybe you'll be more likely to shut down when jealousy arises, or they might try to convince themselves it's not a big deal. There can be this more kind of withdrawing instead of expressing the feelings. You might not want to admit that you're jealous. It might be when you pull away from something, there's too much emotion, so you'll detach, not in the healthy I love healthy detachment, not in the healthy detachment, in a way to protect yourself. It is all self-protection, but it's that fear of losing independence. Yeah. Remember, for avoidant attachers, there has been that learning that it's not okay to rely on others. It's not okay to show my emotions. So pushing people away when I feel jealousy and not facing this, maybe that's the road I'm going to go down. And the final thing I want to say on that part, actually, reparenting is not just for those who feel insecure. It is absolutely for everyone. It is about healing the patterns that prevent you from fully connecting with others, from fully being the person that you are supposed to be. Yeah. It's okay to express your jealousy in a healthy way. You don't need to push people away. You don't need to cling on too tight. You can stay emotionally present without losing yourself in these moments. You can, you have to practice being in the current moment all the time. The more you do that, the more you're going to be able to manage these emotions, and you're going to be able to talk to your inner child. Healing jealousy begins with healing the relationship that you have with yourself. As I always come back to, it's about healing the relationship with you, becoming secure with yourself. Do you want to date yourself? Would you be in a relationship with yourself? Would you marry yourself? It starts with recognizing the wounds your inner child carries and offering them the care and love they've always needed. That's where we come in to do this work. We're adults doing this inner work, giving ourselves what we always deserved. So you can tell I'm super passionate about this. As we wrap up today's conversation, I just invite you for a moment just to pause. You can place a hand on your heart if you're comfortable. You can close your eyes if you want to, and simply say to your inner child, I'm here for you. You are loved. I choose you. You are enough. You don't have to do this alone. We are on this journey together. If you're still listening, I'm on this journey with you. We're reparenting ourselves, the parts of us that need care. Do follow me on Instagram, carly.ann_. Remember, over on Instagram this week, I'm going to be talking lots about jealousy and healing our inner child around this. So if you're really interested in this conversation, definitely check that out. And yeah, just thank you for being here. I know if you're listening to this, it probably means that you're in it, or you struggle with jealousy right now in this season of your life, and it's not going to stay this way because you're literally doing the work. Okay, come and find me, Instagram, more podcasts, look through the whole list of previous podcasts, look through my freebies. Let's really work together through this. And please, 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 if you're on the fence about joining the Attachment Recovery Gym, get off the fence and come on inside, because I am just so keen to help you on this journey, and you've got to promise me you're not going to get overwhelmed in there. You've got to promise me that you're going to show up the way that I'm showing up inside there, and that we're going to do this work together and we're going to heal together. And then at some point you're going to leave the membership so pleased that you joined, so proud of yourself for the work that you've done, and we're going to stay in touch. Yeah, it's not over when you leave the membership. Okay, don't forget, if you trip, we get back up and we go again, and I will be back here again very soon.